Hey everybody, welcome back to the Saw Shop. It is Friday night in the shop. How you guys doing? I hope you had a productive week, whether it be at work or whatever you do out there. Definitely had a good day at work. Weather's been warm again, so it's a little bit easier to move around here. But whatever you did this week, I hope it was a good week for you. Well, what are we doing today? Today's video is, so you bought your old beat up power saw. You went to a garage sale, an auction, a farm sale, whatever. A buddy of yours gave you a saw. Who knows how you got it? You picked up an old saw like this. This is a 268 XP. Just one of the many that I have sitting around that one day will get turned into a power saw. But how do we get from here to a running power saw? That's the question. I get asked it all the time. What do I need to rebuild my saw? What kind of things should I buy? So today's video is going to be just a quick roll through a list of what you're going to need if you're rebuilding a chainsaw. If you want to do it proper and you want to make the saw reliable and useful for the next several decades, if you go through a saw right and rebuild it, it won't cost you that much. And I guarantee if you stay sharp and you tune it properly, that saw will last you for the rest of your life. Unless you're a logger, friends. But let's be honest, most loggers are, they're not buying saws at a yard sale to rebuild. But some of them are. Anyhow, if this is you, check this video out. I think you'll find it helpful. So you bought your vintage power saw. You bought a saw at a garage sale. It could be anything. It could be a 50cc. This generally will cover saws that aren't clamshells. If they are a clamshell, pretty similar, but this is more covering your professional series saws. There's a lot of them out there. I recommend trying to, if you're going to throw money into a saw, try and find a higher end saw that's blown up so that it'll be a better deal in the long run. But this could be any saw. This will not be brand specific. I will mention, though, steel in a couple of instances, because steel, a lot of the parts can be proprietary. Not a lot, but there's certain things that steel does that you're probably going to want to run to the dealer or try aftermarket. So you're going to run through the saw. I recommend, friends, if you have an old saw and it's tired and it looks like it's been around a long time, I recommend completely going through it. Split it, replace everything that you can, make it new again, and that saw will... I have saws here that I rebuilt. I couldn't even put a timeline on it now. You know, some of them are as long as 7-8 years ago, and they're fine. I've never put a wrench on them since, and these are saws that were around when I only had a saw or two, so definitely worth the investment for me. It's more fun, and it just ups my game. As you guys know, pretty much everything in this shop comes from Wolf Creek Saw Shop. I just really like what Ryan does over there. He's been a good friend to the channel and a good friend to you guys for years. I hear positive reviews about Ryan every time. So if most of this stuff, in fact, almost all this stuff came from Wolf Creek. So one-stop shop, it makes it easier. You don't gotta shop here and go over there and look for this and look for that. First thing I would do, I would find your model of saw, and I would grab one of these kits. These are super handy to have around. This one happens to be for an 044 MS440. I just grabbed randoms. There's another one here. This one is for an 036 MS360. We got a 360 coming on the channel that I'm going to run through and do this exact work to it. I'm going to freshen the saw up. I may not even port it. I may just run through it and make it a nice, clean, presentable running saw. Okay, so if you're new, these kits are going to come with an exhaust gasket, a base gasket. This is a reflector that goes underneath the muffler on the crankcase on a lot of steels. Good to have. Really nice that Highway includes that. And a gasket for your crankcase. Now, if you pop these out, the nice thing about taking these out is you can have a look at your bearings. If your bearings don't look new, Okay, and by not looking new, I mean, and I'll pull them out, if they don't look like this, okay, this is a brand new bearing, brand new in the box. See if my sausage fingers can get, no. See if my sausage fingers can get this out without breaking it. If your bearings don't look like that, see how clean, shiny that is? Okay? If they don't look like that, if they're corroded or dirty, rusty, change them, split the saw, buy a crankcase splitter. You can buy them aftermarket for cheap. That's what I use. I have an aftermarket one. Okay, so I would recommend doing everything because some of these saws are 30 plus years old and they need work. If you don't do this, what's going to end up happening, a lot of times you'll get the saw running, it'll run halfway decent, and then it'll start to fade away. It won't idle, it won't tune, it'll start going lean. A lot of times that's because the crank seals are dry. They'll seal for a little bit, and then they get worse and worse. A lot of times your crank bearings are starting to seize. Okay, so you order this kit right here, and then Ryan will sell you a couple of bearings. 6202 and 6203 cover. 6202 is most of your saws 70, 77 cc's and down. 6203 is everything up. Steel, mostly proprietary bearings. He does have the bearings for your steel, whether it be an 038 and 026, 044. You can get those at Wolf Creek. So, okay, so gasket set, bearings. On the same line as gaskets, this is something that Husqvarna does. Okay, you may be looking for O-rings. Okay, you may need a couple O-rings. Here's your part numbers. Okay, these are to seal the oil pump, etc. There's a little X-ring for behind the oil pump. Okay, these will cover your 266s and that. And I got these from Roy Blake. Thank you, Roy. He sent me a whole bunch of them years ago, maybe a year or two ago. Very handy. Haven't had to look for them since. So thank you, buddy. Okay, another thing you're gonna want, because we're on to seals and rubber. Okay, I'm going over the small parts right now. You're gonna want a new sprocket, generally. Okay, that's what a new sprocket looks like. A used one will be worn in between here. You'll see it. You're gonna want a new sprocket. You're gonna want a fuel filter. You're gonna want a spark plug. Okay. If you have an intake boot, I would usually replace the intake boot. That's the connection between the cylinder and the carburetor, or the intake block. Husqvarna's, a lot of them have intake blocks. Make sure that block isn't cracked. If it is, think about replacing it. If it isn't, well, it's probably good still. Okay, fuel lines. Oil lines are generally good. Fuel lines are generally not good. So if you need a fuel line, for steel, most steel fuel lines have the grommet molded into them. You probably are going to want to go OEM. A lot of the aftermarket steel fuel lines I see out there, and I've tried, they're not very good. They don't work well. On the same path as we're talking about fueling, a carb kit. This is a Tillotson RK23HS. This covers all your HS series carburetors. That's just a random carb kit. Okay, so gasket set with crank seals, crank bearings, fuel filter, sprocket, spark plug, carb kit, and a fuel line. Okay, that's not too bad. All this stuff on the table, let's see, I think these are 15. You're probably looking at 20 to 40 bucks for bearings. So we're, 45 bucks. These are cheap, $1 to $5. So 50, $5 there, 55. A good spark plug is about $5. Now, I'm friends, this is American dollars, but it could also be Canadian depending on where you're at. These carb kits are anywhere from $5 to $15. So you have probably $70, $75 worth of stuff there, okay? This stuff here is the stuff that'll make the saw run poorly. This is the stuff that's overlooked because it's not glamorous. You're not porting any of this stuff. It just is what it is. Okay, So I'm going to move this stuff kind of over so you guys can see. Now, you have to decide at some point, are you just changing the piston or are you doing a piston and a cylinder? Okay. If the cylinder is shiny and it's not scored, there's no lines up and down in it that you can feel with your nail, and you think it's going to be good, go ahead and order you a piston. I love Meteor pistons. I also use Highway, depending on what I'm doing. I wouldn't choose one over the other. If you're doing a stock rebuild, they're both good. I really like the Meteors, okay? These pistons have never let me down. They are as nice as it gets, and in a lot of cases, they're nicer than factory. Look at that. This is just a random one that I pulled out of the box. That's a 66 Magnum. Okay, that is a quality piston. Okay, so you may, and they come with Caber rings. Caber's top of the line. You're really not getting a better ring than Caber. Okay, and a new wrist pin. Okay, so if you find a saw that the cylinder is not scored, bonus. Use the OEM cylinder, put a piston in there. Pistons are 40, 50 bucks. I might be a little off on that, but you could do that. Now, I don't recommend this, but I will mention it because, well, we've all done it. If you're on a tight budget, friends, okay, yes, this is a 372 kit that I ordered probably on eBay. I think I paid $26 for it. It's a big bore kit, 52 millimeter. It came with a piston, ring, circlip. These rings that you get with cheap pistons, like this, these are iron rings. They break in right away. You'll run that saw for half a tank and it'll have gangbuster compression, and you'll think you really got something. Now, the problem is with these, they don't last very long. They last, but not as long as like a Caber. That Caber ring will be going. Okay, so that's one drawback. You get a cheap ring. These pistons are really soft. They're not overly well made. They may have some fitment issues. They may be loose in the cylinder. They may be tight. Okay, so you definitely got to pay more attention when you drop one of these in. This piston looks great, but it's not. It has its issues. The skirts are really thin. Okay, and then this cylinder, friends. If you need a cylinder, I do not recommend these. Super rough. Look how thin the cylinder actually is. It's really rough squish band, really rough combustion chamber, really rough ports. The hone job looks like, I don't even know, somebody did it with 60 grit sandpaper. Ports, yeah, they're not horrible. This one's a little droopy right there. It's not flat. Okay, they're rough. Will this run? Yeah, it will. If you're on a strict budget, you know, a tight budget, and you want to try one of these, have at her. It may run for a minute and blow up. It may run for a year. We don't know. Just depends on what you want to do. We've all done it. I don't really recommend these because they are rough. They usually don't run as good. So a lot of guys like me will use those for mock-up only. If you're trying to prove out a theory, you might waste 2 of those cylinders because you don't want to waste a good one. Now, okay, so you need a top end. This is a Highway big bore 52 millimeter for a 372. You guys have seen these on the channel. I think I'm going to do another 372 coming up because I'm in the mood. I think I want to do a Johnson Red, actually. A 2165, I think, is what I want to build. But here's the Meteor piston. Beautiful. Look how much thicker the skirts are, okay? Here, let's compare this again for the newcomers so you can see the difference, so you understand. This piston's very soft. This one is not. See how thin that is? Once that starts to wear a little, that's probably going to break in no time. versus this. Look at the meat on there. That's going to keep rocking. Okay, it's thicker in the walls here. It's just a better deal, okay? The only thing this has going for it is it's single ring. This is more of a knockoff of a 371 piston, but in 372 big bore size. So it's kind of a funny animal, and I just put the wrong piston in the wrong cylinder. So that tells you how awake I am. Okay, you get what you pay for. 100% you get what you pay for with chainsaw top ends. Okay, I recommend these, especially these 372 ones. Look at those big transfers. Nicely cast. A little bit of a booger in the top of this one, but I wouldn't worry about it. The port openings are fairly nice. Combustion chamber cut super straight. Combustion, or the squish band's nice and straight. The combustion chamber's smooth. Okay, it's got a nice coating on it. Intake looks beautiful. You're not going wrong with one of these. Okay, so, and then the next stage is, and I don't have one because, well, friends, I never use them. The next stage is you can buy OEM if available. Now, I often get flack that I don't use OEM cylinders, and the reason why is most of these saws that I use, I can't get an OEM cylinder. Not in this country anyways. I'm in Canada. Availability is totally different here than it is in the States. There's just less people here. And cost. A lot of top ends up here are $500 just for a top end. So by the time I buy a $500 top end, I might have $700-800 into an old saw, if I'm lucky, and I'm still rolling the dice on whether that saw is going to be any good. So to me, it's not worth it to me if I can even get them, and often I can't. So, and then friends, last but not least, one thing you always want to check on your new saw that you just bought: check the muffler. I have seen more saws killed by a muffler that's full of rust. And what happens is, on the way in back into this muffler, the exhaust goes in, and on that wave on the way back in, when it's scavenging, it'll suck rust out of there. And then you put rust through your brand new top end and completely cook your cylinder. I've seen that. Just be careful. Look inside the muffler. If it's full of carbon, burn it out. Use a torch, stick it in the inlet, and stand back. Make sure you're not by anything flammable, because that thing will shoot out like a Roman candle. I've done that many times. If your muffler's in horrible shape and it's rusty, you can buy one of these new West ones. They work great. They're thick. They're quality. The paint's good on them, and they're very reasonable. Friends, this stuff here is all super, super reasonable for what you're getting. You just really can't, you really can't go wrong. I don't know what these cylinders are up to now. I think they're like 120, maybe 150. So friends, if you bought a cylinder and all the rest of this stuff, you're going to be into that saw for, we'll say $250 in parts and whatever you pay for the saw. You could have a running, whatever saw, 266, a 372, completely rebuilt. You know what you have for, say, $300 with buying the saw. That's really hard to beat, especially with the cost of today's chainsaws. So there you guys go. I really hope this helps some of you guys. I get asked this a lot, like, what do I need? I don't know where to start. Well, I always start with bottom up, okay? Crankcase gaskets, seals, exhaust and base gasket, and then I work my way out from that, okay? Bottom end bearings, and then I go into the gas tank, fuel filter, fuel line, carb kit, your consumables, your spark plug, and your sprocket, and then I work my way up, top end. Okay? And then if you need a muffler. You usually don't need a muffler, but sometimes you do, and it's really easy to just rather than trying to clean out a muffler, you know, get the stuff out of it. Sometimes it just makes more sense to put one of these on. So I hope that helps you guys. Okay, guys, thanks for hanging out. Keep sending those emails, and I'll try and help you guys whenever I can. Been getting a lot of emails lately. Thank you to everybody that's taken the time to emailing me with stuff like this. I have another video I think I'm going to make. I got a question this morning. I opened it up, and I've been going back and forth with a fella. His name escapes me right now. You know who you are, though. He was asking me, pop-up versus flat top. Why would I buy either? And what's the pros and cons? I gave him an answer, but I thought, you know what, friends? Maybe tomorrow I will make a video of flat top versus pop-up. Why you would use either and what's the drawback? Mainly the drawback is to the pop-up. I know pop-ups are all the rage. Guys like me, I've used a ton of them. The difference is when I'm using a pop-up, I'm porting the saw, and I can work around the drawbacks of a pop-up. But anyhow, hope this helps you guys out and gets you into wrenching on power saws. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, and there's tons of us that are goo-goo about saws. And there's a lot of good people in this industry, in this hobby, and I'm just proud to be part of it. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy, and I'll see you in a couple days. Later.